Hello and welcome to the Politics of Peterborough, the podcast where I chat with the people who have been elected to make decisions about our city and those who try to influence them. I'm your host, Dave Adcock. Looking forward to the next couple of episodes. In December, I'll be joined by Peterborough United chairman Darragh McAntony, and in January by the Reform UK candidate from last year's election for the Mayor of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough's combined authority, Ryan Coogan. If you have any questions you'd like me to put to them, or any suggestions as to who you'd like to listen to on a future episode of the podcast, you can get in touch via Facebook or X at politicspboro, or send an email to politics.peterborough@hotmail.com. On with the show. My guest for this episode first appeared on the podcast back in June of 2023 when she was in opposition to the then Conservative administration. Then, following the local elections in May 2024, she was made Cabinet Member for Adults and Health, a role she continued until Councillor Dennis Jones resigned as leader in September of this year. She was elected as his replacement as Labour Group leader and now heads up a coalition alongside Peterborough First and Liberal Democrat councillors, Peterborough's first female council leader in the 21st century. Council leader Councillor Dr Shabina Qayyum, welcome back to the Politics of Peterborough.
Thank you very much, Dave, for having me. It's a delight to be here.
Now, when you first stood for election, did you ever imagine that one day you would lead the council?
Not at all. If anybody would have asked me back in 2019, would you think of actually leading the council? I must say, for the first 2 years of that, I suffered from what they call imposter syndrome. It's local government is very starkly different. You have a whole political structure around you, which obviously encompasses your own leader, the whip, and then you've got the wider nuances of being in public office, attending scrutiny committee meetings, analysing data, attending council meetings, and the whole public furor around perception of politics. So there are many different angles that you have to deal with. So let's just say that the first 4 years of my life in politics was a settling in period, becoming accustomed to the new way of living and working in a local government environment, and a huge amount of imposter syndrome. So I will never forget the first time I got up and was actually shaking in my boots when speaking at full council or asking questions even, and sitting down and having to reach for the glass of water and catching my breath. So an element of hyperventilation, the palpitations, it was all there. But yeah, in answer to your question, would never have imagined in my wildest dreams, even up to September, would never have imagined that I'd be leading Peterborough City Council. So,
was there a moment in time where you thought actually a leadership role would be something you'd be interested in doing? Perhaps you didn't imagine it anytime soon, but at some point in the future?
Well, I've always wanted to. I see myself, from the beginning, I've always seen myself as a servant of the public. These roles are those that are of extreme privilege, I would like to say. We are here, we serve an electorate of many thousands of people, and there will be many expectations. So that's the first thing. And I think when you think about leadership roles, as you grow and you gain confidence, one of the things personally for me has always been, I'd like to work with that organisation, or you find your niche. And my niche has always been about health and well-being because of my own professional background. And I fundamentally believe that if people are healthy, emotionally thriving and happy, that sets the foundation for a good economy and also growth within a city. So my interest has always been around that. So I've developed my niche around that. And through the vehicle of local government, there have been many inroads that I've been able to make to help charitable organisations, the voluntary sector. Since I was elected, we had the COVID pandemic. We saw how our city came together, how stakeholders worked together with the hospital, local authorities, other agencies, and the voluntary sector in helping our population. That opened my eyes. And reflecting on that, and in answer to your question, I most certainly thought, this is something that I would continue to like to do. And if it does mean progression from this, because I've seen it as a profession and not just a hobby, because you can't, you've got people's lives and livelihoods here that are at stake. It's certainly something that I definitely wanted to progress in. But obviously, people have plans, and then the plans of destiny are otherwise, and that here I am.
Labour taking control in 2024 was a major shift for the city, the first time they'd been in charge in a quarter of a century. Did you feel any added pressure to get it right because it had been so long?
I think so, yes. It's very important to understand that the Conservatives at the time had been leading Peterborough City Council for 23 years, coming into, and I think I always use this word, that coming in with a whole Labour wave, after that we had the general election with that stonking majority. And it was sort of an element of disbelief, what's just happened, but actually a real opportunity for us to sit down and say, right, what is it in opposition that we have been asking for so long, and having the opportunity to look at those areas that we were particularly passionate about and draw out our own plans to make sure that we get those things moving, get the wheels in motion. So obviously, as the previous leader, Dennis Jones, would say, he's putting the squarest pegs in the squarest holes. So I was in healthcare. He allocated me to become cabinet member for adult social care and public health. Councillor Katie Cole, teaching background, children's services and education. Councillor Jamil, obviously he was finance and has been finance. And Councillor Nick Tholborn, his whole life he's been corporate, running businesses, so growth and regeneration was right up his street. So Dennis had placed the square pegs in square holes, and we immediately got to work about what our priorities were going to be for the city, and joining up that whole health and wellbeing aspect, giving our young people the best start in life. We made sure that at the basis of all of this, we were going to make this city a child-friendly city. As well as that, we had inherited an awful lot of legacy issues that had just been trundling along, and making decisive actions about those, looking at the cost to the taxpayer and making sure that we were making well-informed and transparent choices was also at the forefront of our ethos and what we want to achieve. So we've had to deal with an awful lot, I would say, in those 2 years. But actually looking back, and some of those decisions have been very difficult, but there's been an awful lot for us to celebrate as well, and I'm proud of that.
Clearly, the Labour group wanted to take control of the council, but did you feel you were prepared when that did happen?
I think we were. I think many of us had been around for quite a while. I was elected in 2019. I was going into my second term and re-elected in 2023. Yes, there were some of us that had been newly elected and appointed to cabinet, but actually the expertise and the experience that we'd had in our lives dictated our ability to be able to carry the mantle forward, so to speak. So I think that we were prepared for it. And the good thing about our preparedness is that all of us had undertaken local government association training in the areas of expertise that we were in. So all of us set out to attend the LGA courses in the various modalities and directorates. So we were skilled up. All of us have a mentor to make sure that we are checking some of the decisions that we are making. And also we've got a no secrets approach with our officers. So I think that we were in a very good position to take on the council and also lead from the front.
Now, since the Labour administration took control, what would you say has been the biggest achievement of that administration?
So first of all, when we came into administration, there was the issue around the Lido, as you know, and with the leadership of Dennis Jones at the time, a campaign was obviously set up, and we found a way to make the Lido successful. It is a heritage icon within the city. It's been around for so many years, and actually looking at various ways of working with the Friends of the Lido to make sure that they're able to have more of a bigger stake in managing it, and also putting money into buying the covers for the Lido so that we're looking at heat retention, so that exorbitant costs on heating of the pool aren't actually something that we have to worry about in future. Saw a record number of swimmers come to the Lido this year, and the ticket sales from that have made it sustainable for the oncoming years. And actually, as we speak, there is a group that we're going to look at, hopefully set up a working group for the Lido in particular, to make sure that we can continue to run it in its current form, and also have a look at possibly opening it up a little bit earlier, although nothing's set in stone. But these are just some of the options that we're thinking about. So yeah, we've worked really hard. That's something that we're really proud about. Have a look at our museum. So we're all talking about culture and heritage. I think since coming into administration, we really have revived the whole scene of culture and heritage in our city. We had the most successful exhibition, Doctor Who exhibition, ever in the history of the museum, Peterborough Museum, and people not only locally, nationally, internationally came to visit that. 17,000 tickets were sold at the Doctor Who exhibition, and that's something we've been incredibly proud of as well. We, in our own administration and more recently under my own leadership, we've made the decision on the Hilton Hotel. I mean, let's be frank, councils are not built to run hotels. Okay, and we weren't going to waste a single penny of the taxpayers' money in making decisions that were ill thought through by the previous administration. And I say that with my political hat on, because they'd quite frankly made the wrong decision on that, and we've put it right. So there are so many things that we can quote in terms of what our administration has done. Under our administration, we've set up the family hubs. We are in Peterborough the flagship authority in the whole country in terms of family hubs, and those family hubs are lifelines for families, mothers, their children. We have dental services that are delivered from there, immunisations, you've got well-being clinics there as well for parents who have little ones, and it's so important. Those are obviously a rebranding of the Sure Start centres under the previous Labour government, but bringing those about and actually setting the record straight on why we want the city to be a child-friendly city is inherently important. Some of the other things we've achieved in administration is reversing the closure of the Dementia Resource Centre. When I was cabinet member, it was a very contentious issue, but we were determined to save it. Working with the officers, we made sure we had a plan to save it, and we did. We also reversed the decision to close the industrial hub, which was for people who have learning difficulties as well. So there are many feathers in our cap that I feel that we should take pride in and will shout from the rooftops about in terms of achievement, and are happy to continue on that trajectory.
Just a year into Labour's administration came the sudden resignation from the group of Councillor Blakemore-Creedon. At the time, she stated that she'd been marginalised within the group and experienced bullying before her departure. Firstly, did her resignation come as a surprise to you?
Now, that's an important question. I don't wish to fob this question off. It is very important that women and young women feel supported. I'm sorry to see that she felt the way that she did. Obviously, we have a structure in place within the party that deals with complaints. All complaints are dealt with the utmost of confidentiality. I don't know the intricate details of any complaints that were put forward. If she put a complaint forward or anybody else did, I would like to say that she had a very close relationship with our then leader at the time, Dennis Jones and Alison Jones. I think that all of us holistically attempted to understand and make her feel at home, because she was the youngest councillor, not only within our group, but within the country at the time. And as far as I had observed, everybody within the group actually warmed to her, and she was given a lot of support, especially by Councillor Dennis Jones and Alison Jones, with whom she had a very close relationship. We were all very friendly towards her. It would be good to know why she felt marginalised. Obviously, she'd put in complaint in to the Labour Party. The details of that complaint would remain confidential and I wouldn't know. But I'm sorry to see that if she felt that way. I'm in a position of responsibility right now. She's no longer a councillor of the Labour Party, But she is a young woman, and I think that we need to take that on board. And if there are any lessons to be learned in terms of welcoming young women, then I hope that we can rectify any mistakes that have been identified as a result of that and make sure that this is a more welcoming environment. And I'm determined to do that in my leadership.
On her appearance on this podcast in September, she stated that she was on the receiving end of anti-Semitic posts from Labour Party members and supporters, and when she went to the regional party for safeguarding support, she received nothing. Is the local Labour Party a safe place for people of all faiths?
The local Labour Party is a very safe space. I would like to rectify that. She was indeed subjected to anti-Semitic abuse, which was absolutely horrendous, unjustified and unsubstantiated and unacceptable. That wasn't by a Labour Party member. That was by somebody who likes to support the Labour Party, but we can't stop people from supporting a particular political party or a movement at all. That is not within our gift to tell people who they should support and who they shouldn't. There is no evidence whatsoever to say that she was subjected to anti-Semitic abuse by any Labour Party group member, councillor within Peterborough. They may have been ex-members, but there were no current members that had subjected her to anti-Semitic abuse. But having said that, I've seen that she was subjected to anti-Semitic abuse, and we've got a zero tolerance for that in the Labour Party, especially under Keir Starmer's government. We've stamped it out, and we've resolutely said that there is no place for anti-Semitism within the Labour Party.
She stated that her particular issue within the group was around her call for CCTV in taxis, and that other members of the group stated that because of what she had said, it could easily result in Labour losing 2 or 3 specific wards as a result of taxi driver concerns. Is that a case of the Labour group putting their own self-interests ahead of the safety of the citizens they're meant to be working for?
I don't think that's the case at all. I think that it's really important to understand the nuances and actually explain more. First of all, the licensing committee had made a decision around the CCTV proposals that came to the initial licensing committee. For people's information, the licensing committee is a cross-party representation of many councillors. So you've got the Conservatives, you've got Labour Party representation, Green Party representation, and independents all across the board. The decision that comes out of the licensing committee isn't a political one. It's much like planning. Now, if she was approached in that context, there are some very diverse wards within the city that have a heavy population of people that are from particular ethnic backgrounds. And I think it's really important that as councillors, there is one view that says that there are concerns expressed to us from the taxi driver population, particularly from diverse communities, who express concern that they feel objectified by some of the reports that come out. It is our job as councillors to reassure our residents that policies such as CCTV are very important, not just for the driver, but also for the passenger as well. Nobody refutes the fact that CCTV should be put in taxis. So in agreement with Councillor Blakemore Creedon, absolutely it should be. However, the legislation that was proposed at the time appeared to objectify a single ethnic group. And that's where I think some of those councillors were coming from. They were worried about the fact that they would have residents that would say to them that this feels objectifying. We've since seen that after that, Baroness Casey's report has come out that talks about, for example, grooming gangs and the need for CCTV in taxis. And it's absolutely right to implement. And if anything, when I first came into leadership, one of the things that I spoke about was women's safety. And that's on a reflection of some of these incidences that have happened in the past. When you come into leadership, you want to put right the wrongs that have taken place in the past. I will defend the councillors in terms of the intention that they were coming from. It most certainly wasn't to say that you have voted wrongly because we disagree with CCTV and taxis. It was more to say that, look, we've got very diverse communities. We want everybody to agree with CCTV, but give us the opportunity to put out that information in a manner that doesn't seek to objectify anybody or discriminate against them. And I think that that's a fair ask.
Councillor Blakemore-Creedon was also involved in the reason you're sitting in this leadership chair today after releasing messages from Councillor Jones, which resulted in his resignation as council leader and his current suspension from the Labour group. What were your initial thoughts when you first saw the messages?
When I first saw the messages, obviously, it is right that the Labour Party took the action that it did. Councillor Jones is subject to an investigation on those. And obviously, in terms of sharing my thoughts, it wouldn't be appropriate in light of those live investigations to confer an opinion on that or my thoughts at all. As far as I'm concerned, Councillor Jones, he gave me an opportunity as a woman, and there were 3 women in his cabinet out of the 6. So all I'm going to say, we had a very diverse cabinet as well. As somebody who had seen himself as a father figure to Councillor Blakemore-Creedon, I think that that's something that she probably needs to think about. And obviously, if he sent the messages, he's been very clear. I think about how he has apologised, openly apologise about that, and I think that we need to take that on board. But obviously, in terms of the thoughts of the comments that he wrote, they were clearly unacceptable, and the Labour Party was right to take the actions that it has, and we will see the outcome of that investigation in due course, you know.
You sit in charge of a very different cabinet to that of Councillor Jones, in a coalition with Peterborough First and the Liberal Democrats. Just 5 months ago, they initiated a vote of no confidence in the leadership. What's changed in those 5 months?
So you would have seen that I announced in my leadership that I'm going to reset the dial on the culture within the chamber. Now, each leader has their own personality. I'm going back to basics here. Yeah, each leader has their own personality, and we also have our own relationship, you know. And Councillor Jones felt that in terms of bringing about stability within our administration, he worked well with the Conservative group, which is okay, you know. And his working relationship with other political parties, I can't comment on, I'm not aware of. But if that motion of no confidence had come about 5 months ago, I have a different relationship across the board with people of all political inclinations. I get on well with councillors in the Conservative Party as well, don't get me wrong. And what I'd like to draw listeners' attention to is that local government is so much more different to national government when you think about it. And a lot of the work that gets done is through collaboration with people of different parties. Let's face it, we weren't very many councillors in administration as a Labour administration, were we? And I think that this city has long been calling for an era of stability. And with that stability, you need the right number of councillors to be in administration to ensure that the decisions that you make are, number one, scrutinised adequately, so there's that whole cross-party consensus, and number two, the decisions that you make, the residents are reassured that you've got a wide range of political people that have made those decisions, that takes away the element of this being a vested and self-interested decision. So in terms of that, you would have also seen that I have declared from the offset that my doors are open for the Conservatives to come in. We are sitting in this office right now. That door is open. This town hall is the town hall for Peterborough's residents and people. That door is open. Every single member can come into that door and come into this office as a colleague, as somebody that wants to put the people of Peterborough first. So that is why we had a cross-party coalition. Because of party rules, we can't go into a coalition with the Conservatives. They are our natural adversaries. That's a fact. And So far, I'm really enjoying the fact that we're working cross-party. We're working very well cross-party. So in terms of the difference that we speak of, that's really the reason behind it, giving more stability, giving a wide range of political consensus on decisions.
Is there anything policy-wise that you're not able to do now because you're in this partnership?
I don't think, off the top of my head, I don't think that there is anything that I can't do. Obviously, it is very important that when we do make decisions, if there is a political flavour to it, we go back and we all consult with our various parties. The independents don't have a whip, but obviously the Liberal Democrats, they do have a party structure, and the Labour Party has a party structure. So it is always good practice to go back and check on what our party policies are, which every mainstream party does. And usually there is very little that is disagreed on, especially when we come to the tiers of local government.
Moving into current ongoing events, what were the key factors behind the council's decision to sell the hotel development?
Well, look, we had taken at the time millions of pounds worth of a loan out to produce a vanity project in the city. Who doesn't want a 5-star hotel within Peterborough? Of course, it would look wonderful on the skyline with a rooftop bar, state-of-the-art Hilton Hotel. However, unfortunately, there were complexities in that sort of the developer had taken the money and weren't able to finish the hotel, which left us in a predicament. And actually, that was millions of pounds worth of taxpayers' money. Okay, so it was about, do we look to, and remember, this isn't our asset. We sold it to the developer. And were we going to, there was a decision of either to finish this hotel, which was again a catch-22 situation because we'd have to look for somebody who was going to invest that much amount of money. And don't forget that when a building like that stands for so long, that hasn't had work taking place on it, it depreciates in value. And those were all the factors that were looked at in terms of its depreciating in value. Where we're going to get, again, bang for our buck, given that so many millions of pounds worth of money had been taken out in the first place? No, we weren't. And we weren't willing to waste any more money of the taxpayer. And that was the reason why this decision was taken. It was just too risky to do so. And I think we would have come across as being very naive when we're looking at all the other essential things that we need to deliver on. It was the right decision to make. I don't regret it whatsoever.
Assuming it's sold to a hotel developer and it stays as a hotel, what's a realistic date that we could see customers through the door?
Oh, now that is a very arbitrary question. If it was in my control, I'd say, what's the ideal situation? The ideal situation is somebody that's used to making Hilton hotels all across the country that have failed and have been standing there for 10 years, and that they could turn it around in a year, next year, so we could all have a party up there. But we know realistically that's not going to happen. So we can only hope that somebody that looks at that and says, I could do something with that hotel, even if it's somebody international that's interested in it. We can only hope. Is it set in stone that could happen? No, it's not. But we can only hope. And that's what we would encourage with anybody that would come forward. Certainly that will be the ask.
Turning to Signet Bridge, what do you see as the most important benefits the bridge will bring once it's completed?
Now, you're going to have the public listening to this, okay? I'm no stranger to the comments that said to me, get rid of that bridge. It seems as if there's so much negativity about that bridge. The reason why the decision on that bridge can't be reversed is spades have gone into the ground. It's work has started on it. So we can't just pull out now. But let me give you the benefits. Let me try and sell it to you. Let me try and sell it to the listeners. It's important that we do that. And then you can have a go at me if you want. Have a look at the amount of development that has taken place on the cathedral side of the river. That's what I'm going to call it. The university side of the river. The university is thriving. And the San Martin House side of the river, or the Passport Office side of the river, or the Hilton Hotel side of the river, is also in need of a lot of TLC. However, what we have seen is a couple of businesses that have come to the San Martin House section that we've seen in the summer. Charles Swift Square has been bustling with people. Developments have gone up. People are now using that as a pivotal place to walk to and from work. If you drive over the bridge and come towards San Martin House, that bridge is full of people walking across the two sides of the river. We need to expand that offer in terms of accessibility. It's about connectivity between both sides of the river that, historically has never happened. We are anticipating that there is going to be a huge amount of development now. We're looking at the Whitworth's Mill, that's all already developing. People need connectivity to be able to live, work and thrive in an area. And with the expanding university, it gives every opportunity for students and staff to be able to access that side of the river as well for living purposes. This could become a retail hub, and for everything else that we're anticipating and planning on this side of the river. Connectivity is incredibly important. That's what I'd like your listeners to just reflect upon, that connectivity is very important. The more connectivity it has, the better that it's going to be. I mean, if you have a look at that footpath going over the bridge, it's teeny tiny. You've got numerous people. And I drive around that corner in front of the Premier Inn, which is there on the corner, and you have people literally standing there at the traffic lights. You've got to be very careful going around. Wouldn't it be wonderful if people had an alternative, shorter cut way to go over the bridge? I think that we can see the positives in it. I also won't dismiss the fact that people don't like it. Perhaps they don't, but give it a chance. Spades are in the ground. We can't pull out now. Sorry that you feel that way. Give it a chance. Use it. It might be a good thing.
A master plan for the embankment was developed and released in March of 2022, and other than the university development, nothing seems to have progressed. When are we going to see this underutilised part of the city finally developed?
Well, that was a light bulb moment that came in my mind on the last sentence you spoke about with the bridge. That could be the opportunity. When you look at connectivity between both sides of the bank, you obviously see that when people start using it, that is the perfect litmus test for us to look at developing that embankment too. We've got questions and hopes for a new pool. That could be part of that equation as well. We've obviously got the development at Fletton Quays too. That could bring a whole sort of cafe culture, leisure amenities that come to the area. Like I said, the university is expanding. So I think that this is a work in progress. Putting the bridge there may just increase and expedite that opportunity and development too. So I would say on that note, let's watch this space, and you never know, some good could come out of that bridge, which could lead to those development plans for the embankment taking shape.
As part of the master plan in 2022, options were developed which would include a new stadium for Peterborough United, and the council signed a memorandum of understanding in 2020 with the club for a new stadium as part of the city centre development framework. Firstly, how important is it for the council to work with the club on developing plans for a new stadium?
So I was an elected councillor at the time. I have little knowledge of that memorandum of understanding, and during my short time in leadership, it's not something that I have it has been brought to my attention, or something that I have invested a lot of time in. It is certainly probably something that I would need to discuss with the officers, but I also think that when we look at the embankment as a whole, there are factors to consider. And one of the factors to consider is that parts of Peterborough do sit on a floodplain. So having a stadium in a part of the embankment that could possibly put at risk, a stadium being subjected to flooding, what mitigations are in place for that, are conversations that need to be had. I mean, you will probably know of the Chalkboard, which is a cafe, and I've just seen some of their Facebook posts that have said that, because of flooding, they're shut. those are the things that I'm thinking of ahead. In answer to your question, unfortunately, this isn't something that I have discussed with directors, but it's certainly something that I could bring up, explore what memorandum of understanding took place. And I think as an opposition, we scrutinise that and the details around that as well. It'd be certainly something that I'd like to ask questions about, on what basis that memorandum of understanding took place and what merits, what promises were made, But I think that this administration is all for accountability and scrutiny. And you know what? You've given me a job to do now, so I'll go away and do it.
Can you talk us through what stage the plans are at for the replacement of the regional pool?
So we're doing things a lot more collaboratively, as you know, with government. We are really fortunate that this Labour government has invested millions and millions of pounds for various projects across the city, and we were delighted that the Chancellor had announced leisure facilities and named Peterborough in her speech. I think that we have ample promise that funding should be announced in the coming weeks. Obviously, we've got the budget that's coming up as well. We are waiting with bated breath, so to speak, and I think that they're coming along very nicely. I am hugely positive, and I say that with a great deal of confidence, hugely positive that we should hopefully in the next couple of weeks see some incredibly positive news with moving forward around the pool.
This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Why has the decision seemingly not been made to go for a 50-metre pool?
I can talk to you about that because, let me tell you, when the regional pool was knocked down, immediately, what do? You take away the provision of swimming as a life skill for children in our city. We know we've got so many schools dotted around that used to use the regional pool for their swimming classes, didn't we? And as a result of that, that's been taken away. So having a 25-metre pool, number one, from a cost perspective and affordability, it is very important that we don't make hollow promises and come out and sort of, plaster our faces across social media platforms and say, guess what? I'm going to make sure I'm going to bring a 50-metre pool. But let's not forget that it's also an opportunity for us to use the Lido. Now, the Lido is 52 metres, I believe. That is what is needed for your Olympic grade. So all I'm saying is that a 25-metre pool is deliverable in a shorter time frame compared to a 50-metre pool. The space for that can easily be accommodated. And in terms of that deliverability, I don't want to make hollow promises and say, yep, a 50-metre pool will be put in. I'm going to go back and make the case for it. I know that we probably won't get the funding for 50 metres. We've also got the combined authority who we are working with, who will be contributing part of that funding. We have to be realistic about what we can deliver. I know it's disappointing, but if we can somehow get the new pool nearer the Lido, working in partnership with it, it is a fabulous opportunity for us to develop on the asset that the Lido also has to provide for COPs training purposes. And I don't see any reason why we can't capitalise on that opportunity and provide a combined offer around swimming from an Olympic grade perspective. So we've got more lanes in this new swimming pool that we hope to put forward. Yes, it is 25 metres, but if we can somehow get it in closer proximity to the Lido, trust me, there is an opportunity with using those 50-metre length lanes at the Lido as well for sports training and, yes, Olympic training too. And that's my answer to that question, because I only learnt, and call me naive, but I am going to be honest about this because people want their politicians to be honest. I actually didn't know that the Lido lanes were 50 metres. When I heard that, I thought, well, why didn't anybody tell me this before? I could have answered those questions, and now I'm answering you.
The council has been going through the decision-making process on making a recommendation to government with regards to their local government reorganisation plans. When you were making your decision on which option to back, what was it you were focused on?
Now, local government reorganisation. I've heard some politicians call this pie in the sky. Now, we've had the 5 options. We had a fifth one that popped up. I can never forget when the fifth one popped up. The fifth one popped up when actually I was meeting with the leaders around the region. And we said, oh, look, Huntingdon's popped up all by itself as well. I tell you, local government reorganisation, when it first came out, according to the white paper that had been published, not many leaders around the country knew what was going on. It has been a labour of love. And actually, I will give credit to all the leaders across Cambridgeshire who have come together and around a table and sat and had very respectful discussions and very respectful disagreements about why they see each option to have its merits and its advantages. Now, coming to the decision on option D, which was the decision that was voted at Cabinet only this week, let's be honest, we've had a whole load of very detailed information that our officers have drawn up for us for each option. And at every opportunity, members of this council have been given that information. So, as you know, Joint Scrutiny Committee sat and they looked at and recommended that options A and option D should be put forward to full council. And then we had that debate at full council on the 18th of November, the extraordinary full council meeting, and option D was voted for. Now, Cabinet, as you probably observed, everybody was given the opportunity to talk about what they thought the merits and the disadvantages of each option were. And in coming to option D, I think across the board, and being the leader, I actually never made a resolute decision around option D, but expressed it as a preferred option. Look, in Peterborough, we have always been overseen or considered as Cambridge's poorer brother and overlooked in some sense, you know, and that's sad. However, what we do have in Peterborough is a strong sense of identity. We've got people who are passionate about the rural villages that sort of envelope the more heavily populated, incredibly diverse centre core of this city. And it's very unique to anywhere else in the whole of Cambridge, in the whole of Cambridgeshire as a county. Cambridge obviously has its own development, it's got its university, but we were just starting, you know? And in that, we are comparatively a smaller city. Our population doesn't meet the minimum requirement of a population of 500,000 that's stipulated in local government reform. So coming back to your question, what resonated around the room was, number one, a sense of identity. Number two, not being swallowed up in a larger authority in terms of, yes, sharing our services. A lot of the district councils don't offer adult social care and children's services. So looking at that, our adult social care and children's services are very high need here in Peterborough. So we would have to distribute that resource across the board, and we wouldn't know what that looks like, although it has been stipulated that we would get more funding and it would be a lot more cheaper, but we are also an area of high need. So that came through on the day of the meeting. Also, the fact, I think what came through in the meeting was that people have a real pride in wanting to have a smaller authority in which their council is more accessible. It sits within Peterborough. People can feel associated with it and say that this is our authority, we can go to it. And there is also the whole argument about having a strategic authority that better serves the needs of its residents locally. Now, when you have a look at the West Huntingdonshire corridor that's coming with the Greater Peterborough option, you've got the whole growth prospect down the A1 corridor. And in that comes into the equation more affordable housing, more land available for that housing. There are some developments that are taking place, which also then stipulates the growth that is anticipated to make sure that we prosper as a region. So that was the sense of feeling that drove the decision behind Cabinet members voting for option D. And I think that it came from a place from the heart. And actually, a lot of people also said that it was between head and heart. Yes, according to the business cases that were put forward to us, A seemed like the most fiscally sound option, and Greater Peterborough was more expensive. However, if you have a look at the council tax increase that we spoke about, according to the Greater Peterborough option, it was coming across as cheaper than option A as well. £31 compared to, I think it was £96, if I'm not wrong, with option A for Peterborough residents. So that too was also taken into consideration as well. Yes, the payback period was coming back as a 50-year payback period for option D. However, like I said, we can't put a marker on predicting growth within the area, and perhaps those are factors that might mitigate the length of time in terms of the payback period too. So it's important to understand the nuances around that and the fact that that had also been scrutinised.
This week saw boots hit the ground on the Station Quarter redevelopment. First of all, why has the final business case not been released so that the public can see what the final designs are?
So that's something that I'm not completely aware of. I think that it all depends upon that funding obviously coming through. You know that we do. It's the combined authority that's obviously overseeing, and the money will come to them. I will have to check in the interests of transparency and honesty as to whether they are producing that plan or we're producing that plan, and I can get back to you on it.
Major regeneration schemes often disrupt local communities and businesses. What's being done to minimise the disruption during the construction?
So what we're doing at this moment in time is we are very conscious of the fact that this was going to be in the lead up to Christmas. We don't want to compromise on footfall within the city centre, especially to Queen's Gate, over these works. So what we're doing are the initial works, which are in the underpass, which is clearing the vegetation and the trees and the bushes in the lead up to Christmas, which is a good compromise because that's not going to hinder traffic in any way. It's not going to hinder people's ability to walk through the area and to go to the city centre. And that's this side of Christmas too. And larger plans will be drawn up as to when works are going to take place, when spades are going to be put in the ground, when more significant works will take place, and what diversions will be put in place. And as soon as that's published, it will give the public ample time to prepare and be aware of what diversions will be put in place too.
Combined Authority Mayor Paul Bristow has called for free parking to be introduced in Peterborough to increase footfall in the city centre, and has this week proposed £1.2 million over 2 years to be shared between Peterborough and Huntingdonshire. How realistic a proposal is that?
So let's break down the maths. That's £1.2 million that the Mayor Paul Bristow has put on the table in terms of sharing between Peterborough and Huntingdon. That equates to £300,000 for Peterborough per year. In the grand scheme of things, doesn't really seem like a lot of money, let's be honest. And what he has called for is a meeting with myself and officers, and we are drawing up a business case to put a proposal with him on the table. But I will categorically say that comes with a caveat, and that caveat is that the Tiger Pass, in its fully costed, sustainable form, needs to be a part of that agreement. And the reason why I'm saying that is that there are many modalities with which people come to our city centre. They don't just come on the car. There are an awful lot of people that come to Peterborough city centre on the bus, and the Tiger Pass has been a lifeline for them. You know, we've seen over 1 million journeys. Thousands of Tiger Passes have been sold to our under 25s. We want that kind of footfall within our city centre, and we've got the bus depot here at Queensgate as well, so that's not a compromise for me, and I want to make that categorically clear that that is part of our proposal to be put on the table.
Looking forward, we're less than 6 months away from the next local elections, which will be the first in Peterborough in 2 years. Nationally, Labour finds themselves in free fall in the polls, averaging over 10 points behind Reform, with the Greens currently surging to an average of just 3 to 4 points behind Labour. Do you think we could find ourselves with a very different makeup of council after this set of elections?
It's very difficult to say. Look, I mean, my interests are, and my group's interests are, in serving their residents as best as we possibly can. I think I will always shout from the rooftops about the Labour group and how we've worked and our work ethic here in Peterborough. We've got a brilliant group of councillors who are accessible to their residents, are active within their wards. I am an East Ward councillor, and I always introduce myself as an East Ward councillor before I am the leader of Peterborough City Council. And Dave, I honestly don't go to sleep before 2 a.m. because I respond to every single email that has been sent to me. Unlike MPs, I don't have my own sort of, caseworker, because I am so passionate. With that, leadership follows on through the work ethic of my councillors as well. They are accessible. They're a great bunch of councillors. I will stand by them in this election, irrespective of what the national picture is. I think that it's important that we get out there. We've already been going out every week and speaking to our residents. We will continue to do that. I think politics is about listening to people on the doorstep, and that's what Peterborough City Council Labour group of councillors aims to do. Not just we've done it, but also continue to do in the next 6 months. Knock on doors, speak to people, listen to what their concerns and anxieties are, and if we can fix it for them, we will.
Do you feel that the national government and some of the decisions that they're making are harming your chances locally?
I think that the national government has inherited a viper's nest of a broken system, whether that be the National Health Service, which is obviously very close to my heart as well, whether it is an economy that they have inherited, and now we're looking at local government reform, which is actually in front of us at this very moment in time. The reason why it's taking place is that councils across the country are financially struggling. The current system is not sustainable. It was necessary for this government to make decisions that are trying to fix things. I will say that social media doesn't help. It's a hotbed of negativity. What this government has also had to contend with is the polarisation of our communities and the divisions that have taken place. And I do, sometimes when I do despair, sometimes I look at some of the things that are said, some of the feelings and sentiments that are coming out. Some of these decisions have been very difficult to make, but it is to fix a broken economy that we have inherited, and we have to achieve some form of stability to make sure that we deliver the change that people need, to make sure that we are a more prosperous country, to make sure that people have more money in their pockets, to make sure that families are prospering as well. And at the heart of that, some really good things have also come out. So yes, some difficult decisions may have been made, but also at the same time, some really good things have happened too. So let's celebrate the good things for once. I think that we need an air of positivity, and I support the Labour government in the decisions that they have made, and they've gone further than the previous government has, that scuppered this country's economy over the last 12 years. So it's about bringing our country together, and a lot of the decisions that have been made have been around bringing our country together as well, and I fully support the government in the direction that they're going.
I'm aware we're running short on time, but there were two topics that I had more questions on than anything else. So I want to cover those before we get to the quick fire ones. So Nick asked, in March, Peterborough City Council offered to fence an area of Werrington Fields that both the head teacher and the governors of Kensington Academy had previously agreed is sufficient to meet its curriculum needs. But since then, the Academy Group has rejected the offer and increased its demand to double the area. This business is also trying to force council taxpayers not only pay for the fence, but is also seeking to make the council pay for its legal fees for the privilege. Please can you explain why you and your fellow cabinet members failed to stand by the full council's meeting decision on a compromise and instead are seeking a settlement in private, with neither Werrington's ward councillors nor representatives from local campaign groups invited to attend?
So thank you for your question. I would like to say thank you for your question. And this has been an absolutely impossible situation. You know, I think that many administrations before this had quite simply kicked the can down the road. Okay, so it's been not just an impossible situation, it's been an incredibly sad situation. So I want to validate how people have felt, because if I don't validate how people have felt in leadership, nobody's going to do that. In March, the person who's asked the question is absolutely right. That decision was taken by full council in March to demise a smaller area of the land designated for educational use. And it's not been possible to reach an agreement for a lease under those terms. Okay. Now, the Four Seas Academy Trust filed a judicial review claim with the Administrative Court against us in June. And that was after the decision had been made in March. Now, in September, the Administrative Court granted the Academy Trust permission to pursue the claim as the grounds raised arguable points of law which require resolution at a substantive hearing. Okay, so we were faced with that predicament as an administration. Now, the judicial review proceedings would have proven to be very costly for the council, and I'm going to stress, very costly to our taxpayers, for a piece of land in Werrington. Okay? Now, I take my glasses off as I speak to you about this because I feel that my fight, or the fight of the Cabinet, isn't with either the Werrington Fields Group, Save Werrington Fields Group, or with the Four Seas Academies Trust. We are not here in the business of having arguments with either side. At the centre of this whole debacle are a population of children as to whether they have sufficient land or not. They need a space. And I'll share a story with you. I grew up in a council flat in London in the 1980s. And it was a high-rise block of flats, but the only thing that I had was a balcony that overlooked a very commercial skyline with a BT tower. And that was my safe haven as a child, to just go out. Equally, I will name my primary school, Edward Wilson Primary School, named after the famous explorer who first went to the North Pole, in London. And we had fenced off, concreted areas to play, and we had a small green area or a park that we would be taken to every Friday by our teacher. In fact, then you never had those safeguarding legislations in the 80s. And my goodness, I used to wait a whole week to go out just to that park, to run around, to kick a football with my friends, and that was my release, because I knew that I was going to go at the end of the day back to my council flat and I wouldn't have a place to play. At the centre of this, irrespective of what the Academy Trust or the Save Werrington Fields thoughts are towards each other, I'm always going to back for those children. I'm always going to back for those children. I say so unapologetically, I say so unreservedly, and I might not be very popular because of this. But my conscience is clear about that. And just to put on record, there have been no secret negotiations since that cabinet meeting. The legal teams have been meeting. I haven't met with anyone. And it's very important to put out there very clearly that when legal teams meet with each other, those are the legal teams of the council and of the Four Seas Academy Trust that have negotiated with each other or are negotiating with each other. So it's not my place to be a part of those negotiations. And indeed, in terms of any of the Save Warrington Fields, but yes, when that settlement between the two legal teams takes place, that will then come back to Cabinet for us to have a look at. So just to put on record that none of us have had any secret meetings or negotiations. That's not the case whatsoever. I refute that in its entirety with the greatest of respect. And I'm sorry that people feel this way. I really am. But when this debacle is over, I really would like to sit down with both groups and to seek some kind of a mediation, because this is terrible. People in the Save Warrington Field group shouldn't feel this way. I don't want them to feel this way. And neither do I want the Four Seas Academy Trust to have this perception about them as well. There is certainly some relationship mending that needs to take place, and I'm happy to be at the centre of it.
The other topic, which had by far and away the most questions, Robert asks, with the Agricultural Society now looking to find a future for the showground that's more in keeping with its values and past, surely it's time for Peterborough City Council to use its influence to aid its residents and visitors in returning events and sports to our city ASAP.
So that is dependent upon what the leaseholder and the landowners come to. I cannot say anything without those two groups obviously coming to some type of a consensus. Do I play a part in that consensus? No, I don't. So a decision was obviously made as planning. As the leader of Peterborough City Council, I don't interfere in planning decisions. It's not my place to do so. But we would like to see, and what is in Peterborough City Council's interest, is that any land that is out there that has planning application works in the best interests of our residents as well. And I'm certainly hoping that something comes out of whatever negotiations take place between the landowners and the leaseholders in that regard. That's my hope anyway.
Now, to finish off the podcast, we have some quick-fire questions. Which three people, living or dead, would you most like to share a meal with?
I'd like to share a meal with Nelson Mandela. And I'd love to share a meal with Jacinta Ardern, because she is Prime Minister of New Zealand. She's just such a likeable personality. And actually, her and I share a birthday. And she's somebody that I've always seen as being warm-hearted, resonated with her people, loved by her people. If anything, I'd love to be loved by the people of the city of Peterborough and love for them to feel that I'm in touch with them. I'm sorry if they don't feel that that's the case, but I'd certainly like to be given the opportunity. So, yep. And the third person, Mother Teresa. Just to see what fueled her to look after so many orphans.
What three courses would you have at that meal?
Something really basic. So starters, bit of a salad, definitely some greens thrown in and tomatoes to cover for my vitamin C. And for my mains, roast chicken. Dessert, wouldn't mind a cheesecake.
What's the best TV series or film that you've watched this year?
I haven't had the time to watch TV. Isn't that really, really strange? I have stopped watching the news because it's so negative. And this year, I honestly haven't had the time to watch TV. So if anybody's asked me about Traitors, I haven't watched it. It's on my list to do so. If anybody has asked me about Adolescence, it's a series I also want to watch. Definitely. I'm not into thrillers. I'm into TV that makes me feel good. So comedy, for example, that's another thing that I'd like to watch. I haven't watched EastEnders, and we're having the light switch on tonight and Jason Woodcock is attending. My goodness, yes, I'm so excited about that. But yeah, I'd love to at 8 p.m. put the kettle on and put on an episode of EastEnders and say, this feels like the good old days. I haven't had the time to watch TV.
Favourite book?
My favourite book is The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini. He brings out a level of realism in his writing that speaks about how, during the Taliban reign, how Afghanistan was torn apart. It's a beautiful book. I'd recommend anybody to read it.
In 3 words, how would you describe Peterborough's future?
Hopeful, prosperous, and identity.
And finally, what gives you hope on a difficult day?
That's a lovely question. What gives me hope on a difficult day? What gives me hope on a difficult day is the person that crosses me in the street and just smiles. You know, that there are good people out there. On a difficult day, I always go back to two things that are default. Number one, by default, there are more good people in the world than there are bad, okay? The majority of people are well-meaning people. And the other thing that gives me hope is my mum, when she says, just be kind. You know, she is somebody that has been my driving force. She never gave up on me. And that teacher, when we were on hard times in my childhood and we had a life of poverty, that teacher who after school would sit me down, and she took a chance on me and taught me and said that I knew. I just needed to put my mind to it and I would be able to achieve anything. So yeah, I revert back to that by default, and that gives me hope.
Councillor Qayyum, thank you for joining me on the Politics of Peterborough.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
And that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks to Councillor Qayyum for joining me. You can follow her on Facebook at Councillor Dr Shabina Qayyum and on X at DocShab. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get each episode as soon as it's released. You can find the podcast on social media at PoliticsPBORO on X and Facebook. Please let me know what you thought of the episode. If you have any suggestions as to who you'd like to hear on the show, or any questions you'd like me to put to my guests, you can email me at politics.peterborough@hotmail.com. This episode of The Politics of Peterborough was created, hosted, recorded and edited by me. I'll see you next time.